After some preparations, compile and deployment, we have a working setup for Petaq Dropper, Petaq MC Patch, implant, service. Moreover, we are able to fork another implant called Petaq to run Metasploit framework on the target system as well. The only missing component is the stage 0, which is the Excel file, because we need the user to see something friendly that doesn't trigger any alert on user end. Also, user does not need to do anything other than clicking something. So it must be simple as well. TA505 has used Excel files for this attack. That's why we built our weaponization phase and delivery and exploitation based on this component as well. And in our applications developed section, malicious Excel file also takes the place. The difference between TA505 example and our example is the macro type. In TA505, they have used several different droppers actually, link files, Excel files, even Word documents. But the Excel files also had DDE. DDE is a link, and it is highly identified these days just because of the new features of Microsoft Office. However, Excel for macro is still there, an option, and it's a legacy feature, so it is not removed. So we can assume that our target will also run an Office 2019 Excel file, up to date as well, so we don't have any concerns. But the problem here is, how should we put Excel for macro in this document, and also how we can make this macro to run Petaq Dropper to start this chain. I actually discovered this project previously, which is quite new, and it still has a lot of different bypass techniques for Windows Defender or file type issues and the other defenders, such as EDR tools or antivirus scanners or mail gateway scanners. But it doesn't bypass all of those. Anyway, we will start with the simple version of it. Excel Donut is developed by Fortinet Security, specifically Joe Leon Jr. And this Excel Donut simply introduces a simple Excel for macro for the given C# file. And it also gets support help from the Donut project, which is also used to make this .NET code running. Donut is for x86. Also, CLR Voyance helps it for x64 as well. In our example, this Excel Donut will receive our Petaq Dropper source code, and there will be no reference required, and we will expect a simple output. This output will be the macro itself, and it has also different options such as sandbox to avoid sandbox checks. If our file is sent out to any mail gateway, for example, or if it is sent out to any mail scanner cloud service or another sandbox such as Kuko sandbox, this may help us to bypass and avoid this type of sandbox solutions for detection. Obfuscate is also there. This avoids static issues, static scanning issues. If the file has static signatures, Obfuscate will help us. I will run this with the simplest version, but we can add those options as well, such as Obfuscate. I will keep it simple because it may be harder to track because it's not an automated process. Our Petaq Dropper, which worked well previously, is here. It's a C# code. We are not giving the executable because Excel Donut will compile this. Initial compromise is the output folder, and it will generate a text file for us, not the Excel file. We need to construct that Excel file manually. When we hit this command, Excel NT Donut, of course, you can get this through the repository and install on Kali. You can generate this file. This file will also get supports from MSF Venom as well. And after some adjustments on the binary, compiled binary, it makes it exalt form macro for us. It is still detectable, not bulletproof, but it may work in our case. The generated file, as it may take time, I just generated this in advance. The generated file is a text file. It may not be readable by you, but if you pay attention, it can. For example, semicolon is there, and it will be actually used to separate the columns. And let's make this text file a macro for us. Meanwhile, we also run our Petaq service, because what we expect is, if we go back to the ground zero, making an Excel file, running Petaq Dropper, simply turn to a macro by Excel.net to run MC Patcher, Petaq Implant, and Petaq Service. So Petaq Service must be there running, because the final action, we will see an implant coming. I found this sample financial report in Microsoft templates. This is annual financial report template. Let's open the template file. It is here, and it is quite good, but we need to make this malicious. First, right-click and insert. These actions are also defined here, so you are not losing your path. Just open an Excel workbook, which is our report, and Excel form macro. Right-click, insert, Excel form macro, and go. So we can add this here. It says that open the file in text editor. So this is the text editor, and Control A and Control C, copy all the content to right here. And it also says that separate this to the columns. To do that, you need to go to Data, Text to Columns, Delimited, Semicolon, and semicolon will be used to separate this. As you see, A1 sends to A2, A3, A5, and A6, and this may be quite familiar to you. Virtual unlock is here. White process memory here. Create thread, they are here. The reason is it needs to get these functions to deploy a certain shellcode that will utilize our C# assembly. That's why it needs this Windows API calls and their actually addresses. And it also asks something here important. This is the macro, but this macro must run. So it says that right-click and run. We don't need to test this because this is the test already. So we will test this. But we need auto open. Okay. So going to the first one, the first cell, and first cell name is A1, and we made this auto underscore open and enter. So we rename the cell. So the cell is now auto open. That means it will be open automatically if the file has macro enabled run. I jump to the financial report page anyway, because we need to we need user to see this, not that one. You can copy all of those elsewhere, not visible points, or you can make everything white as well, just like this, and they may be invisible. It's up to you. This depends on the awareness level of the users or the other people, whatever they are and who they are. And now we need to save this. While saving it, remember that we have a scenario, and in our scenario, this is end of year financial report for 2020. And one important step here is let's make it macro enabled, because this is important for us. Our macro must run. So macro enabled Excel file must be there. And close it. In theory, when we double click this Excel file, and whenever it asks that, do you want to run this macro? We must be able to run that macro, and we need to receive a shell. I double clicked, and in our mail we should indicate that those are the financial numbers, but number crunching will need you to enable macro. Please enable macro to see the correct numbers. Enable content. So the user enabled the content. So numbers are good, everything is good. User did see nothing, but we received a shell here. Do you see it? It is now here. And we can look at this low privilege, and we can see things here. It is right here. And whenever you use CMD, there may be some pop-ups because you are in the same context. That's why we prefer you to use another implant after this one as a thread or as a new process, or you can easily use other C# tools to hide yourself. But after this point, probably you can use UAC bypass to get these privileges, and you can move on. Now the Excel file is ready. We need to find our target, which is not this user on the same system. Another user, Guido, will be our target. So we expect this user to be able to run this Excel file, and we still have this shell. And this will lead us to Excel file, Petaq Dropper, MC Patcher, implant, and implant service connection. Then manually, we can elevate our privileges to use our bypass, UAC bypass, and then we can fork a meta-operator, and we can reach our actions on objectives phase. Now let's take a break again, because the file is now ready.